organisers for this fascinating conference today. Listening throughout this morning and to my colleagues' really good presentation just now, there are a couple of key things that are really sticking in my mind that I wanted to talk about today from a government perspective. So workforce, industry, academia, partnerships, and change management and transition. So we've heard a lot about, and we'll probably talk more about, the potential for AI in education systems. But what about AI as a disruptor? We've heard about this all morning. We've heard about this in the past with regards to the internet, but a disruptor in terms of both formal education systems, a disruptor in terms of job growth and new opportunities, and how can governments incentivize and provide the flexibility and encourage educators, collaborations with industry and others to produce the graduates we need for Mr. Rahim's business. As he so eloquently said, he's finding that him and probably many other corporations are having to invest quite a lot of their own money in reskilling those graduates. And what we are seeing, and what if you believe the World Economic Forum, is it's not just reskilling in terms of your own corporate culture. It's actual fundamental skills that a student or a graduate will need to be successful in the world of work. And in many cases, and the World Economic Forum tells us this, they actually need to know how to learn and how to relearn and how to reskill. By 2025, the World Economic Forum estimated that around 50% of workers will need to reskill at some point. That's only 3 years away. Half of our workforce are going to need to reskill. Probably largely in part, or in large part, connected to AI and the changing nature of work. These are global challenges, and as Dr. Bo says, they've been exacerbated by the pandemic, or maybe even brought forward. These trends were long baked in around technological change, disruption in terms of workforce. We've all read, I'm sure, about estimations of mass unemployment from a few years ago. But what we've started to see is actually some more positivity towards the potential for AI as a contributor of economic growth. But we're only going to be able to realize that growth if our education systems change, if they are flexible, if they work collaboratively with industry and have industry perspectives to be able to produce and help graduates get the jobs that are emerging in the economy. So there was an estimation that by 2030, AI would lead to around $157 trillion, or an increase of 26% in GDP due to job growth from changes resulting of AI. That's quite different to the prediction of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people who will become unemployed as a result of it. So what that tends to suggest for me, or my argument, is that actually AI is not going to replace people. It's just going to change what they do. And if you look at skill shortages, as many countries around the world are experiencing, and it's not just like, for Australia, it's skill shortages in terms of the numbers of people. For India, and for other countries, it's around appropriately skilled people for the jobs that are in the economy and needing to be done. If you look at this, and a recent estimation in the Australian context is that around 42% in technical fields, there is a skills gap of 42% in Australia in technical fields, which means that as a smaller country, we need to look externally, we need to look globally, we need to look for partners like India with who we can learn from and work with collaboratively to solve these global challenges. So we've talked a lot about technology, data, computers, and the change arising from that. But the other key area of skills shortage that maybe AI can have a role to play in assisting is around social or care careers, childcare, aged care, health services. AI allows greater efficiency in terms of diagnostic tools. It gives people greater access to diagnoses that they may not have had before. But it also means nurses, healthcare workers, or allied health support staff need to be retrained constantly in these new skills. So what can governments do to help incentivize this and to deliver on the need that industry has asked us to do? So yes, there is a clear role for educators, But as the NEP shows, and indeed in Australia, our current reforms and discussions around skills and bringing industry and academia closer show that this is a global issue. How do we recognise, or we should be recognising, I think, and in some cases we are, and in some of the reforms that the Indian government is undertaking under the NEP, a recognition of workplace learning or micro courses. I was really pleased the other week to be able to attend a new partnership between TCS and one of Australia's universities, Deakin University, who have just launched in workplace learning courses focused on machine learning and AI. And not just what is it, it's actually about like working with people in a company or in a corporation to manage change, to work with their staff, to identify needs. It's a really innovative new program, and it's a really good example, to my mind, of the potential for international collaboration and the ability for education systems where governments provide flexibility and encourage lifelong learning through recognition of non-traditional learning as a formal qualification, that some of these models can really flourish and grow. In addition to this, and I'll save some of my remarks for when we have questions, I've mentioned the role of qualifications, frameworks and integration of short bite-sized learning. How can you do that? We need to be able to skill up our teachers. We need systems that the government incentivises in our universities and our colleges that allows teachers with practical skills to have those skills recognised and encouraged towards teaching and training, particularly in areas like engineering and others where sometimes it's the doing and the practical skills that are more important than the theoretical skills that we sometimes are only teaching our graduates. So I've covered off those. The other area I just wanted to focus on just briefly, and to sort of commend the work that's happening in India as being quite groundbreaking around your new academic bank of credits that's being implemented to support your national higher education and skills qualifications frameworks. This is going to be world leading. From what I understand from the AIU and other Indian stakeholders, it's going to allow stackable credits from a variety of different learnings and different environments as part of a student's almost passport of learning over the terms of their career. This is really innovative, and I think this is the future. Micro courses, stackable credits, focused learning, recognition of people's practical skills, if not necessarily formal education, is going to be critical for us to encourage people more into the formal education system and to produce more job-ready graduates. So to summarise my perspective, I think the future for education needs to be about the learner and not just the mode of delivery. AI, yes, is a tool, but it is also a disruptor and an opportunity for governments and for policymakers to work more closely with industry and to create flexible education systems that really do meet the needs of the economy, which in the end will actually really contribute very strongly to the social development of individuals as well. This all sounds probably fairly lofty, but there are very practical ways in which this can be done. We're seeing this as part of the NEP implementation from the Indian government. Our skills reforms in Australia, reforming and establishing industry clusters that work between education, government and industry to develop what we call training packages, essentially curricula, is being implemented in response to the fact that for about 30 years, our industry-informed training system has become too complex. And so we're not adjusting at the rate of speed of change that you need now with the new jobs driven by this revolution in AI and in industry. So my final reflections are, it's about a partnership. We have to look internationally, we have to operate globally, and a cooperative relationship between industry and academia is really key. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathew Johnston.